Okay.
Somewhere in the neighborhood of 8th grade, Astrid started introducing me to some of their friends and asking for music to be played in the car as I drove them to the mall or Sky Zone or the comic book shop in London. That's London, Kentucky, in case you're curious, about an hour south of Lexington, just off of I-75. For whatever reason, this teeny town off the interstate has a gigantic, kick-ass comic book shop. That's Main Street Game and Comics. Visit their new location at 1106 South Main Street. Come by now for the new Yu-Gi-Oh! Cyber Structure decks for only $11.99. Open Monday to Friday, 8 to 6, weekends 8 to 5. And when some of their friends started telling me that they were interested in some edgy music, edgy? Did you just say edgy music? I decided to have a bit of fun with them. And yes, edgy. Their word, not mine. For the longer road trips, I created a History of Metal playlist. It started with Black Sabbath's Paranoid, and then the tracks would not only be in chronological order, but also get heavier and more intense as it went along. And after each song, I would ask the kids, is everyone still okay? You sure you okay to hear the next song? And they'd all say, yeah! It was a ton of fun. And in that way, we would go from Iron Maiden, Megadeth, Cannibal Corpse, a bunch of others, until we eventually arrived at the penultimate track, Bleed by Meshuggah, which is absolutely brutal. And also 7.5 minutes long. When Bleed was over, I would stop the music and tell the kids, all right, you guys are doing great. Honestly, there's only one track left on my playlist. It's the single hardest, darkest track I've ever heard. I can't listen to this song very often. It kind of messes with my head, you know? But I'll play it for you if you want. And then they'd all say, yeah! And I'd say, okay, just promise that you'll tell me if it gets too intense for you, all right? They'd all say, yay! I'd hit play, and this is what they would hear. Oh, what fun. Well, how exactly did you even know to include Meshuggah in the first place? Not exactly a name that non-metalheads would know. Well, that's all Eric. See, in the Yeti trio, Eric is the metalhead. And one of the things Eric does is reference metal in rehearsals. Mostly bands that, to Brooks and I, are obscure and have funny sounding names, in some cases completely sound made up. But to Eric, they're classics that he uses to go to sleep at night. And the one name that kept coming up when Eric would reference a metal band with really good musicians was Meshuggah. Plus, the name's easy to remember for anyone that's experienced even a little bit of Yiddish. And aside from Bleed, the only gent I've ever really spent any time with is Animals as Leaders, since Tosin Abasi went to school where Eric teaches. The Atlanta Institute of Music and Media. Pursue your passions. Love your career with on-site education, online music instruction, international study, plus certification and degree programs. Please visit aimm.edu for more info. Sellout. Besides, Animals as Leaders are more prog than gent. Almost fusion. See, this right here is one of my biggest barriers to entry. Not only for metal, but also for dance music. The endless subgenres. Yeah, like doom metal, especially sludge, funeral doom, but not so much some of the earlier death metal bands. You mean like My Dying Bride? No, they're more goth metal. That's totally different. So maybe like Converge. No, that's more mathcore. Epica? Symphonic metal. Mayhem? Black metal. Disturbed? New metal. Admonish? Yeah, I give up. And while I have exactly zero interest in understanding the subtle differences between pagan metal and Celtic metal, I can't deny that every once in a while I will come across something in the heavy sphere that really grabs my attention. A lot of this music is challenging, not just to play, but to execute. And that definitely appeals to me. So if Meshuggah is the band out there that equals freaking great musicians, then I'm in. Let's check it out.
So, this is what I expected when my dad first gave me the list of albums in terms of like Cookie Monster vocals, right? Very low, very grumbly.
This album gets its own face. I've got the blissed out listening to something completely heady face. I've got the skanked out beyond all measure by something extremely funky face. I've got the pick your jaw up off the floor because I can't believe what I just heard face. And now I've got the gent so heavy that I can't control my face. I'm not going to have too much to say about what I'm hearing in Destroy Erase Improve.
Dr. Dapton Improve.
Destroy Erase Improve. For a couple of reasons. First, because I really can't play you any of the musical passages that really caught my interest in Destroy Erase Improve.
Lions and tigers and bears.
Destroy Erase Improve. Because A, I don't own a 7-string guitar, and B, I physically can't. Not without a ton of woodshedding. This music is hard in every sense of the word. I will take note of a couple of things, though. First is Frederick Thorndall's lead style. Eric hit me to the fact that Thorndall was very influenced by Allan Holdsworth, and in tone, and the legato approach, and in style, I hear that a lot. But the thing that's so fascinating to me about his solos is how they're constructed. One of my very favorite guitarists of all time is Vernon Reid from Living Colour. Vernon's soloing style. Well, I adore it, but I also have to cop to the fact that it's not for everyone, because everyone's not me. See, Vernon does a few things that I think musicians might appreciate, but many casual listeners might not catch. First of all, he constructs his solos inside out. That is, most soloists will start pretty close to the song's main key or melody during a solo, only diverging or going out after playing with it for a while. And then using those out notes, those passages that diverge from the melody and the key, using that to build tension before bringing it back around. Vernon starts his solos way out. Noisy, weird, fast. Then when the song was formed, when the changes he's playing over, when they resolve to this nice big open chord, he'll come in for a minute, right? He'll play a nice little melody for a couple of bars, let you know that, hey, he's capable of it. But having done that, he goes way out again. I love it. It takes an enormous amount of musical understanding and an enormous amount of confidence to be able to pull that off. And he does. Thorndall, though, he never bothers to drop in. He starts out and he stays out. Not noisy, mind you, not necessarily all that fast, although fast. He composes entire solos out of the jangly bits that other soloists use to connect the more traditional parts of their improvisation. His playing is 100% Uncanny Valley. But it's not just the solos. My single favorite musical thing on this whole album is the arpeggios that accompany the fade out to sublevels at the very end of the album. It's very Mahavishnu almost. Check it out. Neat.
Something that really took me aback, however, was how smart the music was. There are some very, very smart moments in terms of like syncopation and rhythm and just general musicality. I think a really good example of this would be in Soulburn. There are a couple moments in there, some of those like big heavy guitar solos that really like stuck out to me. It was very smart.
I'm going to have to go back to movies for an analogy to what I hear in Destroy, Erase, Improve.
Lather, rinse, and repeat.
Destroy, Erase, Improve. Starting in the early 60s, there were a number of filmmakers that started to try and break away from the cut and dried moral certainty that defined so much of culture from the 40s and 50s. They started experimenting with moral ambiguity, unreliable narrators, anti-heroes. Then came the first of the young Gen Xers, like myself. Little dudes that were born into the Taxi Driver French Connection kind of a world, where everything was nuanced, adult, and for a 7-year-old way beyond our understanding. And in that environment, George Lucas made Star Wars. It looked great. It had cool spaceships and droids and lightsabers. But more than anything else, It was unambiguous. There were good guys and there were bad guys. 20 years later, and in the mid-90s, we're at the beginning of the information age. The big cloud sitting on everyone's head. It's not moral ambiguity, but rather lack of agency. As we all get plugged into the internet and connect with one another, suddenly our community is hundreds of millions rather than just the few thousand that live in our hometown. And what can one person do in all of that? How can anyone even be recognized as human in a world where it seems like things that we don't understand and can't control are running our lives? Which is why The Matrix hit as hard as it did in 1999. Just like Star Wars was a fairy tale about good overcoming evil, The Matrix is a fairy tale about the hero's power to disambiguate himself and bring down the forces which constrain our ability to live outside of forces we don't understand against an increasingly technocratic background. And in that sense, destroy, erase, improve.
Do we cheat him and how?
Destroy, erase, improve is the prequel to The Matrix. It's a collection of songs that all reflect on the feelings of impotence, imposed limitations. The word self-caged appears in this album multiple times. But it's not necessarily completely dated. The music still hits hard. It's really freaking great music, actually. The message is just a bit dated. It's not that we don't still feel trapped. It's just that where we are right now, it certainly seems to me as if we've just moved on to trying to make things better rather than just observing the trapped condition.
I mean, it was fun. It's what you expect from a fun little metal album with very... I love the term Cookie Monster vocals, but Cookie Monster vocals, so good. I don't want to rate it out of numbers, but yeah, good album.